I'm giving this a little time before we actually start this video, just to make sure we capture everything we want. Okay, hello and welcome to Unstuck, the Road to Reinvention. I'm your host, Lisa Neller, and I am a Reinvention life coach. I help women flourish through a combination of utilizing techniques in positive psychology, self-coaching, and transformative conversation. If you want to learn more about me, you can head over to lisanellercoaching.com. And if you are particularly an empty nesting woman, then I invite you to go over to reinventionlifecoach.com to chart a new course, and I have a free video series for you there. So this is episode number 2, and we're going to talk about living through several iterations of yourself by listening to my dear friend Jo Ann Bauer share her story. Jo Ann is a real estate agent. I'm going to refer to my notes here because I can't remember all of this, but Jo Ann is a real estate agent serving the greater Phoenix metropolitan area and is very busy preparing for the next wave of buyers and sellers once this pandemic is under control. And believe me, she's already busy right now. So she was recently named one of the best real estate agents in social media here in the Valley due to her presence and her consistent effort and commitment to provide information to her audience. Now, Jo Ann was not always a realtor. She has spent about 3 decades behind and in front of a news camera as a researcher and investigative reporter, news anchor and producer, and executive producer on several different television news stations throughout the country. She was more recently a news director and anchor for local Phoenix radio station, KFYI. And between the television and radio gigs, she owned a yoga studio, served as communications director for a Christian yoga school, and she has helped many organizations as a paid and volunteer freelance media consultant for marketing and public relations strategies. If you were to read her resume, you'd be like, whoa, who is this woman? She has done so much. And she's been in the public eye for most of her life. But what's so cool about Jo Ann is that she is a very humble human being. And you would feel so comfortable in her presence because she's authentic and she's real. Speaking of humility, I am interviewing a very seasoned and professional interviewer. And it's a little intimidating. And I have reinvented myself as a talk show host. Who knew? Now, I try to bring professionalism to everything I do, but I've never been under the fire as Jo Ann has. I mean, she's seriously been under fire. But of course, that takes its toll after a while, which she's going to share with us, her story. Now, Jo Ann and I are dear friends. We met through a local yoga collective, about 10 years ago, and we hit it off right away. So we've been sharing our lives together, the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and everything for 10 years. So happy anniversary, dear Jo Ann.
Thank you, you too.
It's 10 years. Our first meeting was at a sandwich place. I wish I could remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of it, Jo?
I don't.
It was over on Indian School. I remember it clearly. And one of the things that I loved about her, like right away, was that she liked to eat.
It's true. A lot.
Like, this is going to be a good girlfriend.
Yeah.
So like many of us, Jo Ann has reinvented herself because life has presented different opportunities for her to do so. So I'm excited for you to meet this ray of sunshine. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks. It's so weird to do it this way.
What?
I said, it's so weird. We're usually together, and here we are.
No.
It's awesome. I'm glad I get to see you.
Did you enjoy putting on some makeup this morning? And
I did, and I even put on, look at these magnetic eyelashes. I mean, seriously, it's like having butterflies on my eyes. But I was like, I put a dress on. I have heels on. I mean, I'm sitting in my own office, but I was so excited to actually have a reason. And I am showing clients some homes later today. So
okay, so that makes sense because you do not want to see what I have on at the bottom of it. One thing that you can get away with by sitting and doing an interview.
Right.
All right, can I just say we're not going to talk about the pandemic today? This is
Please, I'm all for it.
Amen, right? Okay. So, Jo, let's start at the beginning. Where you are from originally, like give us some background about where you grew up and how you ended up getting into the news business and then, what happened that made you kind of reinvent yourself from there?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And Lisa, thanks so much for allowing me to be on because, I think all of us sometimes need a little bit of help in getting unstuck. So thank you for bringing that to us and this platform. I grew up on a farm and, my story, I always say it. I grew up milking cows, baling hay and castrating pigs. I mean, that was my life. We grew up on a farm. Look at your face. You're like, oh, too much information. But that's really how I grew up. And I grew up, we worked a lot, sun up, sundown. And truthfully, one of my very first childhood memories is walking around with my mom's hairbrush, holding it like a microphone, pretending to be Walter Cronkite. And I would interview the animals. And then I would, hold up my hairbrush microphone and I would say, and that's the way it was. And that was when I was 4 years old. And so I believe that, my higher power instilled in me a passion and a desire and a path, from birth. And so I, grew up on the farm, left, went to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul in Minnesota, went to school, and, began my career in journalism. I just always knew that's what I wanted to do. Now, the truth is, I didn't really tell people that. Because I thought it was what my mother would have said back in the day. I thought it was hoity-toity for me to think that I could do something like that. And no one in my family had ever even gone to college. My dad didn't go to even high school. We worked with our hands, and it just seemed like a really lofty aspiration and somehow too big of a dream. But I think God is bigger than my dreams. And so I began that career. I didn't go into it right away. I got married, married my high school sweetheart, worked full time, went to school nights and weekends, did a lot of things to get me. And I think that was my first reinvention, was the transition from farmer's kid to city girl. And I also modeled at the time, and it was just a really different world. And I think one of the things that propelled me in professionally was my work ethic. I think that also had a tendency to tilt into workaholism. It was a way for me not to feel my feelings. It was a way for me to cope with when things were difficult. And I did go through difficult things in life. I had my first marriage ended, and that's what launched my career. At the time I was still working. I worked in corporate America in advertising. I went to school full-time nights and weekends. And then I landed my first gig. And so I remember the first day in my first newsroom doing my first story. And it was as though it was the most natural thing I'd ever done. And I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. And so that launched my career. And I worked in a station in Duluth, Minnesota. I moved to Sarasota, Florida. I worked there. I worked in Orlando. I worked in Baltimore. I worked in Minneapolis. And it was a lot. Television news is a demanding industry. And, I just watched the movie Bombshell last night, which chronicles the story of the sexual harassment at Fox. And it was pretty triggering to me, to be honest with you. I've been thinking about that a lot today. But the industry, you don't succeed by not being first. You don't succeed by not working harder than the next person. And I did a lot of that. And when I was in Baltimore, 9/11 happened, and I was in the newsroom when the first plane hit. And when the second plane hit, my news director looked at me and said, go. And, so I have covered a lot of difficult things, a lot of painful things. I've seen a lot of death and destruction and pain. And eventually, I think it caught up to me. At the same time, I was making some poor choices in my personal life, in relationships. I didn't have the tools and the coping skills or the self-worth, to be fully honest with you. I was finding my self-worth in what I did, not in who I was. And eventually that caught up to me, and I got really sick and couldn't work anymore. I couldn't do my job anymore. My relationship had ended. My career had ended. My health had ended, and I was just at the end.
Wow, that's a lot. So first of all, I didn't realize until very recently that you had gone to New York and witnessed all of that, in addition to everything else that you had covered in your life. So that's enough trauma for one person for a lifetime, right? Just in that one story, When did you realize that you were worth so much more than you thought you were? Because I think a lot of people can relate to that. They work so much and they see their value in what they do, and they don't realize that they are worth, they are worth all the dignity in the world until a certain point.
It took me well into my 40s. I'm 54 now. And toward the end of, it wasn't the end of my career, P.S. It was just it was a pause. I think God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I needed to regain my health. I needed to regain my perspective. I needed to put my spirit, my physical, my emotional, my mental self in front of my work self. And I was really good at working, but it came at the cost of myself. And so honestly, it wasn't until I lost everything that I found everything. Because when my career and I even moved across country, I did a lot of geographic fixes in my life. My career allowed for that. And so I finally, when I moved here to Arizona 10 years ago, I sold the house. I sold my yoga studio. I did everything and just came here and really roamed the desert. I mean that both literally and figuratively, and got healthy. And so it was in that time frame that I really started to understand that as long as I based my self-worth on what I did, on what I had, on who I was with, I would always fall short. And I had to find that internally. And I found that through my faith and through my spirit. And it took a lot of work. And the benefits and the reward of that has been life transforming.
Wow, that's awesome. Were you conscious of this reinvention at the time, or were you just like going through the motions and as you were trying to figure it out? And like, in other words, were you intentional about it, or did it sort of just happen?
I was very intentional at that phase of my life, for sure. I think previously when I would, get a new, bigger, better job in a bigger, better city for a bigger, better TV station, those were transitions that were just on the surface. They were just physical. And it wasn't until I was willing to shed all of that and work on the internal transformation. And it was a lot of work. I did a lot of therapy. I joined some recovery groups. It was 10 years after 9/11, and I was in a church service, and they, the big, huge screens they have in some churches, and they were doing like a tribute to 9/11, and they showed a lot of those scenes, and I just started crying, and it wasn't like a little silent weep. It was like that guttural, loud, snot flying around kind of stuff. And my friend's little girl, she was about 7 at the time, said, "Is JoJo okay?" And I heard her say, "I don't think so." And I started therapy for that, for some PTSD, excuse me.
Yeah.
And so it was very intentional. And it wasn't until I was really willing to get raw and real. I started doing a ton of yoga. I started doing a lot of reading. I just, I wasn't wearing hardly any makeup. I just got raw. And when I got raw, I got real.
Yeah, it's so important to dig deep and do the healing. What did you learn about yourself through your healing time? And what do you know about yourself now?
I really learned that I had not really been feeling my feelings for many, many years. Whether it was things I had covered in work that were really painful that I had shoved down, whether it was childhood issues, relationship issues. I said this one time. I was married, and I thought my spouse at the time was having an affair, and I was talking to this woman that he was involved with on the phone. I'd called her, and I was talking to her like I was interviewing, right? And I was asking her really blunt questions. And we got off the phone, and I realized that my legs hurt. And I looked down, and from here up, whatever would have been in camera, right, was totally in control. And my lower body, my legs had been shaking so bad that they were bruised from hitting the bottom of the desk. And so that's what I had been doing most of my life, shoving everything down. And so getting real just allowed all those emotions and feelings, and enabled me to be authentic and to say, yeah, I am a hot mess on some occasions. But I don't identify that way anymore. Now I'm just reinventing yourself. For me meant finding myself, accepting myself, loving myself, taking care of myself.
Well, I love you. And so I'm glad you love yourself, because I think you're amazing. Okay, so how did you go from television and radio to becoming a real estate agent?
Yeah, I had a passion for real estate, and I actually dabbled in it. I sold my first home myself back in 2000. So I dabbled in real estate for a number of years, and had a love homes and design and all that stuff. But my last broadcast job, I was working for iHeart, had a great job working with amazing people, but our climate is so political. And being in that environment every day, in the news environment, was once again what had happened to me before. I felt it wearing on me physically. I was having migraines, had 83 migraines in 90 days. And it was hard to function. And I just realized that I wasn't doing what my spirit wanted to do. And so I really just prayed about it. And I always wanted to go into real estate. And a friend of mine, out of nowhere one day, she calls and she says, "Hey, there's this little class tonight on, what real estate schools like. Do you want to go?" And it was so random and out of the blue. And we went and we signed up, and I went to school. And 6 months later, I resigned from my position and launched my real estate career, and just love it.
And I remember when you did that, and there was a little fear there, wasn't there?
Oh God, there was so much fear. Like, what am I doing? I had a good job with great people and a company where I had a lot of opportunity to potentially continue to move up. And it was my skill set. Like, I really do believe I was created to do television and radio and news. It's so natural to tell stories for me. And I love being around people. But I realized I get to take all those skills and transfer them. Now I get to tell the story of someone's home. I get to know them and understand them. Real estate is not just about a transaction. Real estate's about relationships. And so I get to build these relationships with people, hopefully earn their trust, walk them through a process that can be really emotional and really challenging. And so I get to still utilize those skills. And it's hard. I mean, building a business from scratch, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, it's so, no. My first year in real estate, I mean, I worked my tush off. And while I did build great pipeline of clients, it took beyond that year to really start having those relationships come to fruition with buying and selling of homes.
I'm so glad you said that, and I want to get back to your business a little bit, but before that, I would like to see if you have something to say. Like, what would you tell someone who is thinking of doing a 180, and wanting to make a big life or career change? Like, what things could be supportive to them? What would you suggest that they do?
For me, it was first doing a lot of soul searching, like really seeking that out. When I was younger, I made super snap decisions, and I still follow my intuition a lot, and I encourage everyone else to follow their intuition. But I think there is a lot to be said for hitting the pause button. I like to use pause, pray, and use spiritual energy. And that's kind of, how I like to launch a decision when I make a change like that. And the other thing then for me is do your research. Surround yourself with positive, supportive people. I read so many books, not just on real estate, not just on business. I read books. This one book, Awareness by Father Anthony DeMello, I read it like 3 times a year, just about becoming aware. So really, and creating, some people have different words they might use, but whether it's a formal group, a master group that you join, or it's just surrounding yourself with an accountability partner. I hired a mentor and coach and used that person for the first year. They're, utilizing the skills of a coach like yourself to help you see yourself and the opportunities in front of you from an angle that you're not capable of seeing yourself is so important.
It really is, because we have what we think are obstacles, and really they're just challenges to work through. Yeah. And a lot of people don't see it that way. They have a lot of self-talk, which says, I can't do that, or I don't know how to do that. I don't have enough information. I don't have enough money. I don't have whatever, there's like all kinds of perceived obstacles. And so I agree with you there. Now, I want to just say, I am really, I always have been inspired by your work ethic. Right? Because I know how hard of a worker you are. And I know that just stems from a principle of doing the right thing, doing it at the right time, and being like, you have a high standard for yourself. You love to work. I know that about you, and you love to be professional. But what I like most about you is that you really care about people and what is best for them. So tell us how you bring that quality into your business life.
Oh, that's a great question. My little tagline is honesty, integrity, and authenticity. And I really do think I'm just Jo. This is it. Yeah, I can get all dressed up and put the makeup and those little magnetic eyelashes on and the high heels. But this morning I was on another Zoom and I was, no hair done, no makeup. I wasn't even wearing a bra, it's just, this is who you're going to get. And I think no matter how you're trying to reinvent yourself, if you are true to who you are, and P.S., you have to do the good work of getting to know who you are first. Yeah. And if you are then true to who you are and you treat others, I live by the golden rule. And I think there's the platinum rule. It's, treat others as you want to be treated, or for me, it's treat others as they deserve to be treated. So everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone deserves to be seen. And I think that sounds kind of maybe trite or simple, but I think that is what I bring into my professional life that maybe someone else might not even deem appropriate or important. But to me, if my clients or prospective clients know that they are seen and that they are heard, and I am here to be of service. If I believe that, I live that, I march by that, then the business and the income and all of that will follow. But I have to be true to who I am first.
I love that. I love that. What do you think sets you apart here as an agent in Phoenix?
Mm, there are so many really talented, good agents in town. And there are a lot of agents who do this, maybe just for their friends and family and part time. I am full time. I am fully committed. I work this every day. Um, and I think a niche that just kind of created itself as I started working is people like you and I at this stage of our life. So many people that I work with move here from out of state. They're in the 50 plus age range. They might want to reinvent themselves with a second home and a more relaxed lifestyle, or perhaps a luxury lifestyle here in Arizona. And so somehow I ended up working with so many people that are of an age of they're thinking about the next stage in their life. And so I love coming alongside them and just joining in that process. And I think you attract people because not everyone's going to dig me. That's just the bottom line. They're not. One of my clients, she's a yogi. And so we would talk about, spiritual energy and different yoga things and Mercury in retrograde and the challenge of finding a contract. You talk about that with somebody else, they're gonna be like, who is this chick, right? I just think that I'm just who I am, and it's going to work for some people, and the people that it's going to work for, they know that they're going to be seen, they're going to be heard. I am loyal, and I'm kind of fun, I hope, to work with. I think I work hard, really hard, and I take what I do seriously, but I have never taken myself that seriously. And I think that has been one of the things that has enabled me to have success in different career paths.
For sure. And you are fun. And, but you also bring these skills, these television skills and things like that. Are you able to utilize that as far as, promoting the homes that you're listing and things like that?
That's fine, because I do get to write. I write the stories of homes, and I've got a beautiful listing up in Carefree right now, and to get to tell the story of that home, and talk about, it's not like I don't do, for example, a video and it's like there's 3 bedrooms and there's 2 bathrooms, and that's great, and thank you for that information, that's valuable. But I like to enable the potential buyer to feel like they're in the home, they live in the home. I like to create a storyline, and so I still get to do that. I still get to tell stories, and that is my gifting. And so that is probably something that is very unique that I bring to the table. I also host a television show. It's a YouTube, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, called Retiring Right Phoenix. Retiring Right Denver debuts tonight on YouTube. It's another market that they're airing in, but I do the Phoenix show. And so I get to, again, tell amazing stories about really cool people who find these awesome communities, and I get to tell the story of the communities. So being able to still use my skill set in my new profession is everything.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. And that really does set you apart, I think. Okay. Wouldn't it be fun to talk about what it takes to reinvent your home? I mean, we're talking about reinvention, and I'm talking to a real estate agent. So I thought it'd be kind of fun. Some of us have a little more time on our hands right now, to paint a bathroom or whatever.
Exactly.
So what are some things that people can do to create a supportive environment that helps us to flourish and reinvent ourselves?
I think that everyone's unique, and they're going to know what that might mean to them. For some, that could be the simple act of decluttering. For others, it could be getting a project done that they wanted to do forever and never really found the time. There's just something that happens when your home feels like a true reflection of yourself. You see behind me, I've got the word love. And that is one of the things that I want to project to the world, is that you are loved, I am loved, we are lovable. I'm going to turn this around really quick just so you can see here. Yeah. My whole wall, what I look at every day is all positive messaging.
I
And
love that.
so just creating a space for yourself. And that is something that's really been hard for people, especially right now. People that are working from home, they might have children that they have to do online schooling. They both partners, if there's two parents in the home, might be working from home. So finding that space that's actually just for them, even if it's cleaning out a closet and being able to sit there quietly, is so important. Because to me, my home is my sanctuary. It is my, and I am a homebody, but I'm an extrovert. So not being able to go out and see people and hug people right now is like the hardest thing. But creating a home for me that feels serene and is a reflection of my personality is important. And I would say the same thing to somebody else. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't. I made these with, this is just magazines that I got from a library and cut out pictures and stick them up on a board that costs $1.99, so it doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah, and I use like the cork board so that I can pin my pictures on there, and then I can kind of change them out if I want to.
Smart. I love that.
Well, Jo, this has been so fun. And I think it's been enlightening to help people realize that there is, this is life, it just has its ups and downs. There's opportunities, like you said, to pause, to take a break and heal yourself.
Yeah.
To find out who you are and to reinvent yourself over and over again. So thank you so much for sharing all your story with us. I loved hearing it again, and I never get tired of it. So where can people find you? You said you had a show also, and your websites and everything. Like, where can they find you?
Thank you. You can follow me at Jo Ann Bauer Homes. That's on my Facebook page and as well as on Instagram and Twitter. I have a couple of different websites, one called Arizona Home. That's my real estate website. And if you want to learn more about me, it's just joannbauer.com. And then Retiring Right is the show. You can go to the Retiring Right YouTube channel and subscribe. We just shot another episode recently, and it actually is a little bit kind of a fun little thing just about Phoenix in general. So that's where you can find me. And I just super grateful, Lisa, that you would take this time. Let me come on. I adore you. I cherish our friendship. And one of the things about Lisa that I want everyone to know is I've always been inspired. You are always learning new things. You are always taking on new challenges. You always jump into things. My perfectionism has been a roadblock to me in my life. I watch you go, I'm going to learn this. I'm going to do this, and I'll figure it out as I go. That is such a valuable skill set. So thank you for being an example of that, of being just love and light, and allowing me to be your friend.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much, Jo. Thank you. That means the world to me. And I love you, and I love our friendship also. I'm so grateful that you joined us today. So thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is. And I wish you continued success in your business. And of course, we'll be talking when this whole pandemic thing is over. I want to come over and experience your pool, your backyard, and some salami and cheese and a glass of red wine. I'll bring the wine. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Now is as good as any time to reinvent your life. So in fact, you might be wondering what next. So this is a great time to assess where you are and kind of think about where you see yourself in the future, do a little planning and visioning. So if you truly want to investigate that, head over to reinventionlifecoach.com and get my free video series on how to get started. You can also find me at lisanellercoaching.com. I'm on the Facebook page, Lisa Neller Coaching. And thank you again for joining us. And Jo Ann, thank you again. Love you lots.
Love you.